It doesn't mean it's evil. It doesn't mean it's bad. I think it's a wonderful idea. The concepts of respecting the different seasons and acknowledging the different seasons. And so, like the American Indians and like all the ancient people, you tell children stories which have a moral and an ethic to the story and a moral to the story. And so, but, you know, that doesn't mean you take the story literally. And in the spring, incidentally, in relation to spring, in the spring they had a celebration. All over the world, people have celebrated the coming of the sun, coming back. And they call it the Passover, Easter, and the American Indians had celebrations of the coming of the sun back to life in the same week. But what's interesting is that the Phoenician Canaanites, today we call them Hebrews. The Hebrew people are actually Phoenician Canaanites. And that area we call Lebanon, Israel, was called Canaan, the land of Canaan. And consequently, their priests in the land of Canaan were a Phoenician bloodline. So we call it Phoenicia Canaan. Well, they celebrated the first week of Easter also. Thousands of years before Hebrews ever were in Canaan. Way before Hebrews were ever there. We call them today Palestinians. But way before Hebrews were ever in Palestine, the Palestinians and the ancient Palestinians, we call the Phoenician Canaanites, they had a celebration of Easter also. They called their celebration the marriage feast of Cana. And the whole idea was that it was a celebration in the first week of spring when it was referred to as the marriage feast of Cana. Why? Because the mother in the story was Mother Earth, Mother Nature. And God the Father was going to impregnate Mother Earth in the spring with the spring rains that were coming. So the sacred fluid that causes life in the mother is coming, and God the Father is going to impregnate Mother Earth with the sacred fluid, rain. Incidentally, in the Hindu religion, one of the oldest gods, his name was R-A-I-N, Rain. That was one of the most ancient gods in India. His name was Rain. And there are pictures in the old ancient temples of rain, and it says that God is impregnating Mother Earth. Father God impregnating Mother Earth. So consequently, you can't, we're talking sex now, okay? So you can't have Father God impregnating Mother Earth unless you got a wedding. You got to have a marriage first, right? So we call it the marriage feast of Cana. And the story was in the ancient Phoenician concept. We're talking about 3,000 years before Christianity existed. There was a story in what we call today Israel. It was called Cana. And the story was basically this. God's Son, the light of the world, of course the Son's the light of the world, God's Son is asked by Mother Earth, Mother Nature asks God's Son to draw water. Well, that's what the Son does. It does draw water. Make it rain on the grapes so the grapes can grow and they can smash them and make wine. Therefore, you make good wine out of water. So God's Son creates a miracle. He creates wine out of water. Yeah, well, it draws the water, it rains on the grapes, we smash them, get loaded, and chase women. But there's nothing wrong with this, all right? We're talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll in spring. That's why you still have spring weddings. You go to any good spring wedding in the Middle East, they get loaded. By noontime, everybody's stinking drunk, and they're chasing women, and it's enjoying sex, new life, enjoying, have a drink, and don't worry about it, right? The whole idea is the worship of the heavens is the oldest story in the world. That's why the Bible's called the greatest story ever told. Why? Simple. It's the only story that's ever been told. The worship of sex, drugs, and rock and roll.